On this episode of Our Little Warehome,
we're gonna start construction!
We're the Branch family, just ordinary people who decided to buy an 80-year-old warehouse and turn it into our downtown family home. Come along with us and experience all the hard work and thousands of decisions it's going to take to turn this derelict warehouse into our little warehome.
2 weeks ago, we filed paperwork with the city to close down Park Avenue.
And we're closing down Park Avenue because right back here, we're gonna have like a really big crane flying in trusses, dropping the trusses onto the house for our second story.
Right now, we're about to visit all the shops and residents around here, hand out flyers, and inform them that we're closing down the road. Hi, we wanted to tell you about our road being closed back here next week. We're building out that warehouse as a residence. We are closing the road next week behind you. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Cranes and trusses and stuff being flown in. So next week, heads up, that whole road will be closed.
Before we can use a giant crane, we have to call our local power company. They'll put insulation on the high voltage lines. This will do two different things. One, it'll insulate the lines in case we bump them with the crane. And two, it gives the crane operator a visual indicator of where those high voltage lines actually are.
Today, this big crane's taking off the roof.
This crane can reach up to 150 feet high, and it can lift up to 60,000 pounds.
The removal of the roof and the trusses with the crane cost $4,000. That's $4,000 of the $20,000 framing budget that we have. With every remodel project, and especially old buildings, you're gonna find surprises. And here's one we found. So in the past 70 years, someone has put a giant smearing of tar on the wall. We have no idea why, but it's gotta come off the wall. And so for the past day, Ryan's been using a giant blowtorch to cook the tar off the wall.
Fire is awesome.
We're still in the pre-construction phase. We're trying to clean up this old building. So for 4 days, we pressure washed the building to remove the old paint. We did test the building for lead paint, and thankfully, those tests came back negative. The framers just finished up cutting out the openings for the master bedroom window and the patio doors. One of our biggest concerns was saving the brick and block that they were cutting out, because we may need that later for other openings to kind of trim it out. Now you may say, Alan, just go get brick or block from your local hardware store or Lowe's, and it's not that easy. This is brick from the 1930s, which means it's hard to find and it's hard to match up. This represents a $5 bill or more. So it's important to move slowly and think about what you're doing before you just start knocking walls down, this kind of project. We used a concrete saw to cut the 4-inch slab and jackhammered out those sections. This video transition seems really quick, but it actually took 24 man-hours to get ready for plumbing. The rough plumbing took 1 day, but 36 man-hours to complete. Now that it's done, we can put concrete in those holes and cover it up. With any concrete application, before you lay down concrete, you add wire mesh. And this wire mesh adds additional tensile strength to the concrete. To cover up this new plumbing, we had to add 4.5 cubic yards of concrete. That's half a truck of concrete. To build a second story on the warehouse, we needed to know if our slab could support the additional weight of a second story. Our slab is 4 inches thick, and that won't support the second story. The second story is supported by about 12 posts, and we cut out the 4-inch slab under these posts and added an 8-inch slab of concrete to support the additional weight.
The walls of the warehouse are not strong enough to support a second floor. The engineer is requiring us to install load-bearing beams every 8 feet to handle the weight of the second floor. These 6x6 wooden posts will stay exposed to our living spaces and will stain them to match the trusses above.
In the 1940s, this building was an auto garage, and the previous owner installed really thick 4x10-inch wooden beams up in the trusses to pull motors out of the cars that they were working on. We wanted to save these beams and use them in a really special place. The framers had a great idea. They said, let's use these old beams between the posts and everyone can see them. We thought that's a great idea, so we decided to do it. Okay, so we're headed down to the warehouse today to clean up the job site. Typically, a general contractor will charge you anywhere from $200 a week to $500 a week just for job site cleanup. And if you're willing to go once or twice a week with a push broom or shop vac, you clean the job site up yourself and save yourself a whole bunch of money. $200 a week over a 6-month project is a significant amount of money.
Oh, this is so hard. Why do we have to clean up?
Because Sarah, Dad's so cheap. This is a big magnet that we push around to pick up the nails so people don't pop the tiles. It's super attractive.
Family cleanup time at the Warehome has been good for the kids. Now they feel like they're a part of the construction process.
This is $25,000 in floor joists and trusses. Now the difference between a floor joist and a truss is trusses go and hold up your roof, and joists are what they run for your flooring. You can see they're even individually numbered for exact placement in the house. This speeds up the framing process, so there's no guesswork. And this will be installed later this week as long as the rain doesn't come, so let's keep our fingers crossed. Placing the floor joist for the second floor took the framing team 2 days to complete. This was some really hard work because each joist weighs about 80 pounds, and the framers had to lift each joist up over their head 10 feet and then hang them in a metal joist that they called a bucket. The framing crew had a really long afternoon that day. They had to lift 50 sheets of plywood up to the second floor. Now, I was there, watching, not helping, but don't judge me, I was wearing my nice clothes. Originally, this building had a metal roof sitting directly on the rafters and trusses. In the 90s, a hurricane came through and ripped off the roof. The roof was replaced with heavy plywood and heavy asphalt shingles. This made the 60-foot trusses sag up to a foot in the middle. We had to fix that, so we used a lever system and some brute force to level out the trusses. I used my God-given girth to help raise those trusses. Once we had the trusses nice and level, we added steel poles to support the roof. Typical home construction is 2x4s in the walls. We added 2x6s for even more additional strength. And that wall you see them lifting right there is the interior wall on our garage. There's lots of unforeseen delays in projects like this. You can have delays with scheduling tradesmen, materials not arriving. We've had rain all morning. It's totally rained out the entire day. The project has completely stalled out for the day. So you're thinking, oh, big deal, Alan, you got a 1-day delay. What's the big deal? The problem is we have tens of thousands of dollars in lumber getting soaking wet, which means it'll bow, it'll crack. Tomorrow when we try to use it, it'll be heavier, it'll dull the saw blades more, it'll be harder to deal with. Rain plus untreated wood is not a good equation. A project like this, you're gonna expect some overages on budget. You expect things like overages on lumber and those sorts of things, but what you don't expect is having to reprint blueprints. And now you're saying, oh, Alan, it's just some paper. This is $250 worth of blueprints that have been stamped by the engineer. We'll have to get these reprinted, which costs a couple $100, take them back to the engineer to get them re-stamped and signed, and then bring them out here. On a project like this, you just add a little bit of stress here and there, and overall the project gets very stressful, which is not a good thing. This week, the framers are working on our 1,300 square foot second story. The second story will consist of Jimmy and Sarah's bedrooms and bathrooms, and also the media room. The framers have so much work to complete, even Sarah is getting in on the action.
We're gonna set these trusses, brace them up good, set this plywood right on top of them, and put the roof together.
These trusses are 60 feet long, so we brought back the crane that we used for demolition to fly them up to the roof. The framers are 25 feet off the ground, and so safety, being that high off the ground, is very important.
We got to have these harnesses on, which is a fall protection plan, just in case one of us do slip or something. Normally we don't, but never had it pull tight on me. I've heard they do hurt though when they pull tight, so I don't know, and I don't want to test it myself. So.
Setting these trusses took the framers an entire day, and it was a really exciting day seeing the roof line get built. Framing is a really exciting portion of the building project because your building feels like it's getting built really quickly and you're almost done. But the reality is there's still so much to do, and as you'll see in the coming episodes, there is still so much work left to be done.